Amanda Wilson rushed through the busy hospital hallway, her scrubs wrinkled after the 12-hour shift that should have ended 2 hours ago. Dark circles framed her tired eyes, and her ponytail was coming loose. She checked her watch and groaned. She was going to be late for her second job at the coffee shop again. Just 3 more hours of work, then home to study, she whispered to herself. At 28, Amanda was juggling nursing duties with evening work and night classes, trying to advance her career while keeping up with mounting bills. As she hurried through the hospital's main entrance, Amanda didn't notice the tall man walking in. The collision sent her bag tumbling to the ground, scattering its contents across the polished floor. "I'm so sorry," Amanda said, dropping to her knees to gather her things. "I wasn't looking where I was going." "Entirely my fault," the man replied in a deep, calm voice. He knelt to help, picking up her old textbooks and worn wallet. Amanda looked up and froze. The man helping her was Dr. Robert Chen, the famous surgeon whose face had been on the cover of Time magazine just last month. His medical innovations had saved thousands of lives, and his charity work was legendary. What most people knew, but Amanda had only read about in gossip magazines, was that he was also a billionaire from his family's tech empire. "Dr. Chen," she stammered. "I'm so sorry." He smiled kindly. "Please call me Robert." He handed her the last fallen item, her phone with its cracked screen displaying multiple notification alerts for unpaid bills and late payment warnings. Amanda quickly took the phone, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. "You work here?" Dr. Chen asked, noticing her hospital ID badge. "Yes, I'm a nurse in the emergency department," she replied, standing up and straightening her scrubs. Dr. Chen looked at her with curious eyes. "Emergency? That's where Nurse Wilson works, correct? The one who developed that modified triage system they're talking about implementing hospital-wide?" Amanda blinked in surprise. That's me, actually. I didn't think anyone in administration had even read my proposal." "I'm not administration," he said with a small smile. "But I do read interesting ideas. Yours could save many lives." Before Amanda could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from her coffee shop manager. 30 minutes late equals final warning." "I have to go," she said quickly. "I'm already late for my other job." Dr. Chen frowned slightly. "Another job? After a full shift here?" "Bills don't pay themselves," she said with a tired smile, already backing toward the door. "Wait," Dr. Chen called. "I'm actually here for the medical conference this weekend. I need an assistant familiar with this hospital for the next 3 days. The pay would be substantial." Amanda stopped. "An assistant? Me? But I'm just a nurse." "A nurse who created an innovative triage system while working 2 jobs," he corrected. "I need someone with your perspective." He took out a business card and wrote something on the back. "This is my offer for 3 days' work. If you're interested, meet me in the hospital conference room tomorrow at 9 a.m. Amanda looked at the card, and her eyes widened at the number written there. It was more than she made in 3 months. "Think about it," Dr. Chen said, walking away. 3 days that might change everything." Amanda stood frozen, the card clutched in her hand, as the automatic doors closed behind him. A strange feeling washed over her, that this accidental meeting might be the most important moment of her life. Amanda stared at the business card in her small apartment that evening. The number written on it seemed impossible. 3 days of work for that much money. It had to be a trick. People like Dr. Chen didn't just offer life-changing opportunities to people like her. She placed the card on her kitchen table and opened her laptop. A quick search showed dozens of articles about Dr. Robert Chen, his medical breakthroughs, his charity hospitals in poor countries, and yes, his billions from the tech company his family had built. What would he want with me? She wondered aloud. Her phone rang, breaking her thoughts. It was her mother. "Hi, Mom. How are you feeling today?" Amanda asked, already knowing the answer. "Oh, just fine, dear." Her mother lied. The cough that followed told the truth. "Did you get the new medicine?" Amanda asked. A pause. "Well, I was going to wait until next month. The price went up again, and I know you're already stretched thin." Amanda closed her eyes. Her mother's heart condition required expensive medication that insurance only partially covered. Between her mother's medical bills, her student loans, and the basic cost of living, Amanda was drowning financially. "Mom, I told you, I'll figure it out. You need to take your medicine. After promising to transfer money for the prescription, Amanda ended the call and looked again at Dr. Chen's card. Maybe this wasn't a coincidence after all. Maybe this was the solution she needed. But what exactly would she be agreeing to? 3 days as his assistant seemed vague. Amanda had heard stories about wealthy men and their assistants. She shuddered. No amount of money was worth that. The next morning, after a restless night, Amanda found herself walking toward the hospital conference room. She told herself she was just going to hear him out. She could always say no. Dr. Chen was already there, reviewing papers at a large table. "Nurse Wilson," he said with a smile. "You came." "I'm just here to get more details," Amanda replied, remaining near the door. "What exactly would this assistant job involve?" Dr. Chen gestured to a chair. "Please sit. I'll explain everything." Cautiously, Amanda took a seat across from him. "I'm here for the International Medical Innovation Conference," he began. "I need someone who knows this hospital, someone with practical experience on the front lines of healthcare. You would attend meetings with me, provide your perspective on new medical technologies, and help me understand how they might work in real hospital settings like this one." "Why me?" Amanda asked directly. "There are hundreds of nurses with more experience." Dr. Chen's expression turned serious. "Last month, I received a detailed email about a new tribe system that could reduce emergency room wait times by 40%. The writer included real-world examples and practical implementation steps. It was the most thoughtful proposal I've seen in years." Amanda's eyes widened as he continued. "When I asked who wrote it, the hospital administration couldn't even remember. They had filed it away without serious consideration." He leaned forward. "That email had your name on it, Nurse Wilson, and yesterday, by complete chance, I met you." Amanda sat back, stunned. "You read my proposal? The one I sent 3 months ago?" "Not only read it, I have been testing a version of it in my clinic in Boston. It works." He smiled. "When I saw your name tag yesterday, I knew this wasn't just coincidence." "So you want me to talk about my ideas?" Amanda asked, still not fully believing him. "I want your honest perspective as someone who actually works with patients every day. No filters, no hospital politics." He handed her a contract. 3 days, the payment we discussed. "And I promise, this is strictly professional." Amanda scanned the document. It was straightforward and included accommodation at the conference hotel. This was real. She thought of her mother's medicine, her overdue rent, and the student loans that kept her awake at night. "When do we start?" she asked, reaching for a pen. Dr. Chen smiled. "Right now." Amanda smoothed down her simple navy dress, feeling out of place as she followed Dr. Chen into the Grand Hotel ballroom. She had rushed to buy something professional-looking from a discount store that morning. Even with her best effort, she felt like everyone could tell she didn't belong. "The first session starts in 10 minutes, Dr. Chen said, handing her a conference badge with her name printed next to the words, "Executive Assistant to Dr. Robert Chen." "Ready?" Amanda nodded, but she wasn't ready at all. The room was filled with important-looking people in expensive suits, all seeming to know each other. Name badges revealed hospital directors, pharmaceutical executives, and medical technology investors from around the world. "Dr. Chen, there you are." A tall, gray-haired man approached them with an eager smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We've been waiting to discuss the funding proposal." "James," Dr. Chen nodded coolly. "This is Nurse Wilson, my assistant for this conference." The man barely glanced at Amanda before turning back to Dr. Chen. "We should talk privately." "Nurse Wilson stays with me," Dr. Chen replied firmly. "She provides the practical perspective I need." Before James could protest, Dr. Chen guided Amanda toward a table where 5 other men and women sat waiting. Amanda recognized several faces from medical journals and business magazines. "Let's begin," said a woman with sharp features and perfectly styled hair. "The consortium is prepared to offer $200 million for exclusive rights to your heart valve technology." Dr. Chen's face remained neutral. "On what terms?" "Standard arrangement. We control pricing, distribution, marketing." "And who gets access to it?" Dr. Chen finished. "Meaning only hospitals and patients who can afford premium pricing." The woman smiled tightly. The market determines access, Dr. Chen. We need to recoup our investment. Amanda shifted uncomfortably in her seat as the discussion continued. These people were talking about life-saving technology as if it were nothing more than a new smartphone model. What would this valve cost the average hospital? Dr. Chen asked. Initial pricing would be around $40,000 per unit, James replied. Amanda gasped before she could stop herself. All eyes turned to her. Something to add, Nurse Wilson? Dr. Chen asked, his expression unreadable. Amanda hesitated, then remembered why she was here. That price would make it impossible for most hospitals to use regularly. The patients who need it most, those in underserved communities, would never get it. James smiled condescendingly. Young lady, this is how medical innovation works. Premium pricing funds future research. No, Amanda said, finding her courage. This is how people die from treatable conditions. Last month, I watched a patient struggle because we couldn't afford the newest equipment. His family had to watch him suffer unnecessarily. The room fell silent. Amanda's heart pounded, certain she had just embarrassed Dr. Chen and herself. To her surprise, Dr. Chen nodded. Nurse Wilson makes my point perfectly. My technology was developed to save lives, not to sit unused while patients die. So what do you propose? Asked the sharp-featured woman. Tiered pricing based on hospital size and resources, licensing that allows generic versions in developing countries after 3 years, and a requirement that a percentage of units be donated to underserved hospitals. James laughed. You'd be leaving hundreds of millions on the table. I have enough money, Dr. Chen said simply. What I don't have is a solution for patients like the one Nurse Wilson described. As the meeting continued, Amanda watched in amazement as Dr. Chen skillfully negotiated, never backing down on his core demands while finding compromises on other points. He wasn't just a brilliant doctor or a wealthy man, he was using his power to fight for patients who had no voice in rooms like this. When they finally left the meeting 2 hours later, Amanda had a new understanding of the game Dr. Chen was playing. He was inside the system, but not controlled by it. Thank you for speaking up, he said quietly as they walked to the next session. That's exactly why you're here. For the first time, Amanda felt that maybe, just maybe, she belonged at his side after all. The second day of the conference began early. Amanda woke in her hotel room, the most luxurious place she had ever stayed, still hardly believing where she was. After a quick breakfast, she met Dr. Chen in the lobby. Change of plans today, he said, checking his watch. The morning meetings can wait. I want to show you something first. Instead of staying at the hotel, they got into a sleek black car. Amanda expected to go to another fancy building. Instead, the car took them to a neighborhood she knew well, one of the poorest areas of the city. Why are we here? She asked as they pulled up to a simple building with no sign. Dr. Chen smiled. This is where I spend my Wednesday mornings whenever I'm in town. Inside, Amanda was surprised to find a small but modern medical clinic. A few staff members greeted Dr. Chen warmly, like an old friend rather than a famous billionaire. Robert. Right on time, said an older nurse, handing him a white coat. We have 12 patients waiting. Lisa. This is Amanda Wilson, Dr. Chen introduced. Amanda, Lisa has run this clinic with me for 6 years. Lisa smiled. So you're the nurse with the trade system Robert won't stop talking about. We could use your help today. We're short-staffed. Before Amanda could answer, a young mother entered with a coughing child in her arms. Lisa quickly took them to an exam room. What is this place? Amanda asked, looking around at the modest but well-equipped clinic. My private practice, Dr. Chen answered, washing his hands. No insurance forms, no billing department, no corporate oversight. How do patients pay? They don't. He dried his hands and looked at her. 1 day a week, in cities where I attend conferences or meetings, I practice medicine the way it should be practiced, helping those who need it most. For the next 3 hours, Amanda worked alongside Dr. Chen, treating patients who couldn't afford regular health care. She watched in amazement as the famous surgeon treated ear infections, performed minor procedures, and prescribed medications with the same care he would give to wealthy patients. How do they get their prescriptions? Amanda asked, thinking of her mother's expensive heart medication. Dr. Chen pointed to a small pharmacy at the back of the clinic. We stock the most commonly needed medications and provide them at no cost. Amanda shook her head in disbelief. Why doesn't anyone know about this? Some wealthy people give money to have buildings named after them, he said. I prefer to give my time and keep it quiet. The moment this becomes public, it becomes about me, not about the patients. Around noon, a young girl came in with her grandmother. The child needed asthma medication that typically cost hundreds of dollars. My insurance stopped covering it, the grandmother explained, wringing her hands. They said there are cheaper alternatives. Those don't work for her. Amanda had heard this story countless times at her hospital, always with the same unhappy ending. She waited for Dr. Chen to explain there was nothing he could do. Instead, he wrote a prescription and handed it to Lisa. 5 minutes later, the girl left with a 3-month supply of the medication she needed. How do you fund all this? Amanda asked as they took a quick lunch break. Dr. Chen looked her in the eye. Remember yesterday's meeting? The heart valve technology? Amanda nodded. By fighting to keep the price reasonable, I may have lost $100 million in personal profit, he explained. But I can use what I do earn to run 20 clinics like this across the country. You're playing both sides, Amanda realized. Working within the system while quietly fighting against it. The system won't change overnight, Dr. Chen said. But we can create small exceptions while working toward bigger changes. As they headed back to the conference for afternoon sessions, Amanda saw Dr. Chen in a completely new light. He wasn't just talking about helping people, he was actually doing it, far from the cameras and publicity. Ready to face the wolves again? He asked as they approached the hotel. Amanda straightened her shoulders. More than ready. The grand ballroom buzzed with excitement as hundreds of medical professionals gathered for the conference's main event. Dr. Chen's keynote speech about the future of healthcare. Amanda stood off to the side, watching him prepare his notes at the podium. Nervous? She asked, handing him a glass of water. After 20 years of speeches? Never. He smiled, but then his expression turned serious. Though I am changing my speech a bit, yesterday's clinic visit reminded me why we're really here. The lights dimmed, and the audience quieted as Dr. Chen began speaking. Amanda listened with pride as he presented his vision of affordable, accessible health care for all. Unlike the private meetings, here he spoke boldly about ethical responsibilities and putting patients before profits. Suddenly, the emergency alarm blared through the building. Everyone froze. A hotel staff member rushed onto the stage and whispered something to Dr. Chen. His face turned grave as he took the microphone again. Ladies and gentlemen, there's been a major accident on the highway. Multiple vehicles, many injuries. The nearest hospitals are calling in all available medical personnel. If you're able to help, please report to the main entrance immediately. The room erupted in movement. Amanda's nurse instincts kicked in instantly, and she hurried toward Dr. Chen. My hospital will be overwhelmed, she said urgently. I should get there right away. I'm coming with you, Dr. Chen replied, already removing his tie. Let's go. They rushed outside where his driver was waiting. Take us to City Memorial, fast as you can, Dr. Chen instructed. When they arrived, the scene was chaos. Ambulances lined up outside the emergency entrance, unloading injured people. Staff ran between patients, trying to manage the sudden influx. Amanda immediately spotted her supervisor looking overwhelmed. Sarah, I'm here to help. Sarah looked up with relief. Amanda, thank God, we need all hands. Her voice trailed off when she noticed Dr. Chen. Dr. Chen, what are you doing here? I'm here to work, he said simply, rolling up his sleeves. Where do you need me? Sarah hesitated only a moment before pointing to the trauma area. We have 3 critical patients and only 1 surgeon on duty. As Dr. Chen headed toward trauma, Amanda jumped in to help triage the incoming patients. The system was breaking down under pressure. Thinking quickly, she grabbed a marker and started implementing her triage method, the very one she had proposed months ago. Hours passed in a blur of activity. Amanda moved from patient to patient, organizing the flow according to her system. Several times she caught glimpses of Dr. Chen working alongside the hospital staff, his expensive suit now stained with blood, his face focused in concentration as he fought to save lives. Around midnight, a nurse rushed toward Amanda. We're out of O-negative blood. The supply truck can't get through the traffic. Amanda felt her heart sink. Without that blood type, they would lose at least 2 critical patients. She turned to find help and bumped straight into Dr. Chen. "We need O-negative blood," she explained quickly. "The supply." Before she could finish, Dr. Chen was already on his phone. "This is Robert Chen. I need an emergency helicopter transport of O-negative blood to City Memorial." "Yes, now. Use my private landing pad on the roof. I'll pay whatever it costs. Lives depend on it." He hung up and looked at Amanda. 20 minutes. Can you keep them stable?" Amanda nodded, too shocked to speak. Within the promised time, they heard the sound of helicopter blades, and minutes later, the critical blood supply arrived. As dawn broke, the crisis finally began to ease. Amanda sat on a bench outside, exhausted beyond words. Dr. Chen joined her, looking equally tired. "Your triage system," he said quietly. "It worked perfectly tonight. The ER staff was talking about it. You organized the chaos exactly when it was needed most." Amanda nodded, too tired for pride. "And you? You called in a helicopter like it was ordering pizza." "Money is just a tool, Amanda," he replied. "Tonight we used it the right way." They sat in silence, watching the sun rise over the hospital where they had just saved dozens of lives together. "Yesterday you showed me your world," Amanda said finally. "Today, you stepped into mine." Dr. Chen nodded. "And I've never been more certain that we need to change it." The morning after the emergency, Amanda arrived at the hotel to find Dr. Chen waiting in the lobby. His usual polished appearance was back, but his eyes looked tired from their long night at the hospital. "I wasn't sure you'd come today," he said. "You must be exhausted." Amanda shrugged. "So are you. But we're both here." She had only slept 3 hours, but something drove her to return. This was her final day with Dr. Chen, and she sensed it might be the most important. "I've canceled my conference appearances," he explained. "There's something else I want to show you." They took his car to a small office building downtown. Unlike his other spaces, this one hummed with activity. Young people worked at computers, while walls displayed maps marked with colorful pins spread across the world. "What is this place?" Amanda asked, looking around curiously. "The real reason I'm in this city," Dr. Chen answered, guiding her to a private conference room. "And the real reason I wanted you to work with me these past days." He closed the door and touched a screen on the wall. Images appeared. Hospitals and clinics in different countries, each built in a similar style. "For 10 years, I've been quietly building a network," he explained. "Not just charity clinics like the one you saw yesterday, but a completely new model of healthcare." Amanda studied the images. "These are all yours." 26 facilities in 14 countries, he nodded. Each one testing different approaches to providing quality care at a fraction of the traditional cost. He pulled up charts showing patient outcomes and financial data. Traditional hospitals spend up to 25% of their budgets on administrative costs and insurance processing. Our model cuts that to 5%, redirecting those resources to patient care. Amanda leaned forward, fascinated. "And it works?" "Better than I expected." Dr. Chen smiled. "The facility in Kenya has better patient outcomes than most American hospitals, at 1/10 the cost per patient." "Why keep this secret?" Amanda asked. "This could change healthcare everywhere." Dr. Chen's expression turned serious. "The medical industry is worth trillions. Many powerful people profit from the current broken system. If I'd announced this publicly before proving it works, they would have crushed it immediately." He sat down across from her. "But now we have data, real results, and I'm ready to bring this model back to America on a larger scale." Amanda shook her head, trying to process everything. "What does this have to do with me?" Dr. Chen took a deep breath. "Amanda, meeting you wasn't an accident. I'd read your triage proposal months ago and was impressed, but I needed to know more about the person behind those ideas." "You planned our meeting?" Amanda felt a chill. "The collision at the hospital?" "Not exactly." He looked slightly embarrassed. "I was at your hospital hoping to speak with you. The collision was genuine clumsiness on my part, but I did seize the opportunity." Amanda stood up, suddenly angry. "So these 3 days were what? A test? An interview?" "Yes," Dr. Chen admitted simply. "I learned to be careful about who I trust with this work. I needed to see how you think, how you respond under pressure, how you view the system we're trying to change. And did I pass your test? Amanda asked sarcastically. With flying colors. He pointed to the screen, where a new image appeared. Architectural plans for a medical center. This will be our first major American facility, right here in this city. I want you to help run it. Amanda stared at the plans, her anger mixing with confusion and excitement. Me? I'm just a nurse. You're just the person who created an innovative triage system while working 2 jobs to make ends meet, Dr. Chen corrected. The same person who spoke truth to power in a room full of executives, who organized chaos during a crisis, and who never once was intimidated by my wealth or position. He handed her a folder. This is my offer. Take time to think about it. It's a big decision. Amanda opened the folder and gasped at the salary figure. More money than she'd ever imagined earning. Why me? She whispered. Because changing healthcare isn't just about money or technology, Dr. Chen said quietly. It's about people who care enough to fight for something better. People like you. Amanda sat alone in her small apartment, staring at the folder Dr. Chen had given her. The job offer lay open on her coffee table, the salary amount still shocking each time she looked at it. Beside it sat a stack of bills and her nursing schedule for the coming month. A stark contrast to the future Dr. Chen was offering. She picked up her phone and called the one person she always turned to in difficult moments. Mom, can we talk? 20 minutes later, Amanda sat beside her mother's bed in the small house where she'd grown up. She had explained everything. The 3 extraordinary days with Dr. Chen, the secret healthcare network, and the job offer that would change her life. It sounds too good to be true, her mother said cautiously. Are you sure about this man? That's just it, Amanda sighed. 3 days ago, I would have said no one becomes a billionaire by being completely honest. But I've seen his work with my own eyes. The clinic helping people who can't afford care. The way he handled the emergency at the hospital. Her mother took Amanda's hand in hers. And you believe in what he's trying to do? This new healthcare model? I do. Amanda's voice grew stronger. Every day at the hospital, I see people suffering not because we lack the ability to help them, but because the system makes it impossible. Dr. Chen is trying to fix that. Then what's holding you back? Amanda stood and walked to the window, looking out at the neighborhood where she'd grown up. Fear, I guess. This is everything I've ever wanted. A chance to make real change. But what if I fail? What if I'm not qualified to help lead something this important? Her mother smiled gently. Amanda Wilson, you've been taking care of people since you were 10 years old and made soup for the entire neighborhood when the flu hit. You worked 2 jobs to put yourself through nursing school while helping me with my medical bills. If anyone is qualified to help fix healthcare, it's you. But it would mean leaving the hospital, leaving my patients. To help many more patients, her mother finished. Sometimes we have to let go of what's comfortable to reach for something better. That night, Amanda couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about all she had seen in the past 3 days, the stark contrast between the luxury of the medical conference and the reality of healthcare for ordinary people. She thought about Dr. Chen moving between these worlds, using his position to create change from within. Could she do the same? The next morning, Amanda called the number Dr. Chen had given her. I have questions before I decide, she said firmly. They met at his office downtown. This time, Amanda came prepared with a notebook full of concerns and ideas. I want to be clear about what this job would actually involve, she began, and what freedom I would have to implement changes. Dr. Chen nodded, seeming pleased by her preparation. You would help develop and oversee the patient care systems in our new facility. Your triage model would be just the beginning. And my mother's health care, she needs ongoing treatment. Comprehensive coverage for you and your family, of course. Amanda took a deep breath. One more thing. If I take this job, I want your commitment that we'll create a training program for nurses from underserved communities. People with talent who never get opportunities because they can't afford expensive schools. Dr. Chen raised an eyebrow, then smiled. This is exactly why I want you on my team, Amanda. You're already thinking beyond yourself. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal? Amanda hesitated for just a moment, thinking of her small apartment, her familiar hospital, the life she had worked so hard to build. Then she thought of all the patients she couldn't properly help within the current system, all the changes she had dreamed of making but never had the power to implement. She took his hand. "We have a deal." Later that day, Amanda walked into the hospital to give her notice. Her supervisor was shocked. "You're leaving nursing? For what?" Amanda smiled. "Not leaving nursing. Just finding a new way to care for patients. Many more patients." As she cleared out her locker, Amanda looked around at the busy emergency room one last time. 3 days ago, she had rushed through these same doors, late and stressed, with no idea her life was about to change forever. Now she was walking out with purpose, toward a future she never could have imagined. 1 year had passed since Amanda Wilson had shaken hands with Dr. Robert Chen and taken the biggest risk of her life. Now, standing in the bright lobby of the New Hope Medical Center, she barely recognized her own life. Nurse Wilson, a young woman in scrubs, approached her. "The first group of nursing scholarship students has arrived for orientation." "Thank you, Jessica. I'll be right there," Amanda replied, straightening her name badge that now read Amanda Wilson, Director of Patient Care Services. The medical center had opened 6 months ago in what had once been a forgotten corner of the city. Unlike the cold, institutional feel of most hospitals, New Hope was designed with warm colors, natural light, and a layout that put patient comfort first. More importantly, it offered top-quality care regardless of a patient's ability to pay. Amanda walked toward the training center, passing the large community room where free health classes were held daily. Through the glass walls, she could see elderly patients learning gentle exercises from a physical therapist. Next door, new mothers gathered for infant care lessons. When she reached the classroom, Amanda paused at the door, taking in the sight of 20 young nursing students, all from neighborhoods like the one where she had grown up. These were the first recipients of the scholarship program she had insisted on creating, talented individuals who would have been unable to pursue medical careers without financial support. "Good morning," Amanda said as she entered. "I'm Amanda Wilson, and I want to welcome you to the first day of your nursing education." A young man raised his hand. "Ms. Wilson, is it true you helped design this entire medical center?" Amanda smiled. "Parts of it. More importantly, I helped design the care system we use here, the same system you'll be learning." "And is Dr. Chen really coming to speak to us today?" a young woman asked eagerly. "He is, but first, I want to tell you a story about how 3 days changed my entire life." Amanda spent the next 20 minutes sharing her journey, from overworked nurse to her chance meeting with Dr. Chen and everything that followed. She watched their eyes widen as she described the emergency room crisis and how it had proven the value of her ideas. "1 year ago, I was just like many of you," she concluded. "Working multiple jobs, struggling with bills, wondering if I could ever make a real difference. Then someone saw potential in me that I hadn't even recognized in myself." The door opened, and Dr. Chen walked in, looking much the same as when Amanda had first met him. The students straightened in their seats, clearly impressed by his presence. "I hope Ms. Wilson has been telling you how she saved dozens of lives with her triage system during that emergency," Dr. Chen said with a smile. "She's too modest to brag, but I'm not." Amanda shook her head. "I was just explaining how our model works differently from traditional hospitals." "And it does work," Dr. Chen added, turning serious. "In 6 months, we treated over 10,000 patients. Our outcomes are beating national averages while our costs are 40% lower." He walked to the front of the room, but the real success isn't in our numbers. It's in the people we've helped who would have been turned away elsewhere. It's in the community health programs that have reduced emergency visits by 30%. And it's in all of you, the next generation, who will take these ideas even further. After the orientation, Amanda and Dr. Chen walked through the busy medical center together. "We're expanding to 3 more cities next year," he told her. "I'd like you to help train the leadership teams." Amanda nodded, feeling a surge of pride. "I've been developing some ideas for improving the patient education programs too." Dr. Chen smiled. "I never doubt your ideas, Amanda, not since the day we met." As they reached the main entrance, Amanda paused, looking out at the neighborhood where families now had access to care they could never previously afford. "Sometimes I can hardly believe this is my life now," she said quietly. "Do you ever miss your old job?" Dr. Chen asked. Amanda thought for a moment. "I miss some of my patients. But here, I'm helping change the system that failed them." She smiled. 3 days with you opened my eyes. But this past year, This past year has opened doors I never knew existed. Outside, a mother walked toward the entrance, holding her child's hand. Amanda recognized the look of worry on her face, the same look she had seen countless times in her old emergency room. "Excuse me," Amanda said to Dr. Chen. "There's someone who needs help." She walked forward to welcome them, ready to show another person what was possible when healthcare put people before profit.